Welcome to the Directing Animation Livecast with Scott Weiser. In my many years as an animator and director, my most defining projects have been my short film, Layers, along with Vanishing Ink and Cirque de Solitude, two books which I wrote, illustrated, and pitched at several studios as feature films. And I have more of these feature film pitches coming soon. Today, my guest is the wonderful Pablo Smith. Pablo, I've been going to the Cartoon Talent Networking Expo for 10 years. It would have been 11 this year, but we had to do it all online. And the first person I met at the first expo I went to was Pablo Smith. I was still studying animation, working to get into CG animation. He was already a really accomplished 2D animator, very skilled and very impressive. And actually, our buddy Chris Oatley, who is a Disney character designer and very prominent online, he came up and said that he was going to start the Pablo Smith fan club. And once I saw Pablo's work, I started to see why. He was very skilled. I think it was you went to work at Duncan Studios right after that with Ken Duncan, the legendary Disney animator who has his own company. And you've worked in CG and 2D. You've worked for Nickelodeon for several years, and now you are the co-director of animation for the new series Spongebob Kamp Koral. And most important to me is your project that you created and kickstarted, which was Prepper Farms, and that was a delightful little. It was very funny, very zany cartoon that you're trying to get off the ground. Now that didn't fund, right, on Kickstarter?
Right. Yeah, we didn't hit the goal there.
But you kept going, and that's what's important. You know, I worked for a couple years for a Kickstarting crowdfunding agency. And I was supposed to be an expert on Kickstarting, and film was the hardest that I saw. The hardest to crowdfund. More recently, I've seen with the Harmon brothers, or VidAngel, I guess is what they're called. Dan Harmon, he crowdfunded the Tuttle Twins, and it raised about $1 million, I think. So they're the biggest crowdfunding of a cartoon series of all time. And we're going to have him on the show in a couple of months. But they're like these masters of marketing, that's how they were able to do it. And so, talented people like you, Pablo, you can look at the project and think this is really, really great, and still you don't get the traction. And I think it was awesome that you kept going. You kept producing the content, and which is what I've had to do. My own Layers Kickstarter didn't fund. My books did, but the film didn't fund. And I had to find a grant somewhere else and money for my own business to try to finish that. So talk a little bit more about that, about your Prepper Farms project and how that was.
Well, that kind of came in. That kind of started. I had a dream one night about this little chicken character, this little chick character who saw a farmer take his egg, take an egg from his mom's nest, and he thought his little brother was being kidnapped, and so he went in to the farmer's house, and this was all animated in my dream, and he took the egg, and the farmer kept looking for the egg, and the guy kept hiding it, the little chicken kept hiding it, and then I woke up and I told my wife about it, and she was like, "That's really stupid." And I thought, I'd just go ahead and try to put it together. Together in like a little pitch Bible, and pitched it to Nickelodeon, and they called me up and said, "Hey, we're not going to pick this up, but it's such a good premise. Like, the characters are wonderful, the relationships are great. Just because we're not picking it up, it doesn't mean it's not good."
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know you pitched it to Nickelodeon, and that makes sense. You were working there, so.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a boost, and I thought, maybe I'll just keep it up. I'll take it and keep going with it, even though it wasn't picked up by Nick. So I started putting together the Kickstarter. As you said, I've seen Kickstarters, but I never researched anything on how to do it. And so this guy contacted me afterwards and said, your show idea, everything was great, but he said you did it kind of like most people do it, like who don't know anything about it, which is like
don't know anything about Kickstarter or.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He said, you should have started putting stuff out 2 or 3 months before the Kickstarter.
It's free content and.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just did it like the day before, like I just started it up. But he told me like, keep going. So I actually did keep going. But then when I started
who was the person that told you that? Was that me? Because I know you emailed me about it.
Yeah. No, it was somebody else. I think his name was. I'll have to remember.
Was it Lorenzo Etherington or was it one of those guys? The How People You Draw guys? Because they're the most successful artists I've ever seen on there.
Oh, really?
It's because he releases all of his content for free, the How to Think When You Draw tutorials, and they're all online for free already. Right. And so he already has this big audience, and then he's like, hey, do you want it all compiled in a book? Here's a high quality book. And I bought all 3 so far. 3 years in a row. We'll see what he does this year if he has 4th. But they're fantastic books. But yeah, the thing about Kickstarter that's interesting is you either have to have this enormous audience, like Matthew Cherry with Hair Love that Sony picked up. He already had this big audience because he's a former football player, I believe, for the NFL, and he'd been building this audience over time, made several films. Like he had all this groundwork laid, and then he launched his thing. And you're competing with that, or you're competing with products on Kickstarter. So you have a lot of the traffic on Kickstarter is taken up by people who launched a product, and then they even have marketing budget. Like they're sending lots and lots of traffic to Kickstarter to that specific page. So you're competing with a lot of sophisticated marketers now on Kickstarter. Where at the beginning, it was easier to just throw up a project and it would fund. I know that Jason Brubaker was one of the first, but he already had a big audience, and so. Yeah, it's an interesting zone to play in.
Yeah, I kept going with it, but once I got picked up on started working on Kamp Koral, I had to I had to put things aside for a little bit because this show has been taking up quite a bit of time. So
a lot of energy.
still working on it, but
well, at one point you were directing on your own, right?
Because
there was a point where you didn't have a co-director. You reached out to me. You reached out to other people about interviewing for that.
Yeah, there was a lot of moving parts there, but yeah, it was a little quite a bit of work there for a while.
Yeah.
Still is, but not as bad anymore. But
yeah. Well, and pain is a good teacher. For a couple months, an experience like that can be really beneficial. So,
yeah, it was. I mean, as hard as it was, like it was really, really, and as hard as it still is, it's really good. And I would never. It's one of those jobs where like it's the reason why I got into animation. When I was younger and I'd watch shows and I'd say like, oh. I would really like, that's what I want to do. This is what I want to be a part of. This is one of those shows. So I'm really glad to be a part of it. And I'm really happy to get to work with all these crazy creative people that just make me a better artist. And, I learned so much from them. So yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, it seemed wonderful when I got to interview with you guys. It was really a very, good friends. It seemed like you guys were good friends, and but you also have a lot of work. You have a lot of knowledge that you had between the 3 of you that I met, and the co-director they hired, Joe Mendia. He's extremely talented as well. So it's really inspiring to be able to learn more about what you do there, and also to hear more about. Prepper Farms. I really loved the episode where you just did it on all storyboards, where I think they're eating on a plate, and the mom's like, the last person to touch it has to wash it. Yeah. And then it just goes wild from there. It was really a lot of fun. And actually, I don't know what you think of the suggestion, but as great as final animation is, I wonder if that's how you could build an audience for that project, is to just keep doing those storyboarded segments.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with the series Batman, Spider-Man. It's a very independent project, and you start watching the first couple of them, you're like my wife thought it was dumb, I didn't. I was like, this is kind of interesting, but I knew it was offbeat, but over time, like, it just becomes the funniest thing, and my kids absolutely loved it. And it's very, very rough, gritty, low quality animation, and the animation kind of goes up over the series, but they still kind of stuck to that campy style where the characters are constantly jittering, and like, it's actually the style of Batman, Spider-Man, and it's a really fun project. So yeah, and I think that's because your idea is so good. I think showing the idea originally and then seeing later if you could fund the actual animation could be really fun.
Yeah,
it could grow an audience.
My kids watch they love what's it called, The Odd Ones Out on YouTube, which is just, it's like it's pretty much these still drawings, and the guy talks over and tells a story.
Right.
But the drawings are very simple, and I think he's even got like a book out or something like that now. But it's just the way it's all about the story, it seems like, as long as it's funny, then the medium doesn't really seem to matter to the kids, as long as they find it entertaining.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk about your directing process. Now, obviously, we can't talk about the details of Kamp Koral. It hasn't even come out yet. Like, we have one image, I think, that's been released online. So we really can't talk about the details of it. But I would really like to hear about your process as a director, kind of what your day-to-day looks like. And then we'll kind of go into a few other things after that. Okay.
Well, I guess the process all starts with the creator's vision. I had to really find out and align myself with. I had to watch a lot of SpongeBob, which we already did, but this time I had to watch it with a completely new.
Yes. A new set of eyes, right? A new set of glasses.
Yeah, and we watched a whole bunch of it, and still do, and just to see, just to get familiar with that world, and then it's so we try to make it so everything still feels and looks like the SpongeBob world. I thought I knew how to draw SpongeBob before I started, but drawing SpongeBob and all the characters is a really important step. So I'm the animation director. So I direct the animation. Then there's storyboard directors and the overall show director, creators, runners. I kind of immerse myself in how to make the animation look like SpongeBob animation and make it as high quality as possible and stuff like that. Learning how to draw him has been, I would say, the most crucial part of directing for SpongeBob. It's been I think the thing that it either looks like SpongeBob or it looks like a SpongeBob knockoff. And it's just getting, when we get, so I'll get some animation from the overseas studio that we're using, and it's I'll just kind of go over and just do a lot of drawing over the CG animation, and even though it's CG, I still feel it's more of a 2D show. The medium is CG, but we're still trying to make it as 2D as possible.
Well, and it's fascinating in the interview when you talked about one of the things I thought was most interesting you said when you guys were interviewing me for The Possibility is that you got to draw SpongeBob so precisely because they'll take that as gospel. That studio will go and they will match SpongeBob the way you drew it. And so that's actually really cool that your drawings are a big part of the final process.
Yeah, and you were mentioning about storyboards, every board artist. I mean, for boards, I'm not a storyboard artist. I have done storyboards in the past, but not for a show, and especially not for a show like SpongeBob. But everyone has a different style.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the animators who are asked to stick to the boards follow exactly what the boards look like, and for some reason the board artist, whether it was like quick rough drawing or whatever it was, didn't match it, we need to kind of go through and make sure, if SpongeBob's nose isn't exactly where it should be, it starts to look like a completely different character.
Yeah.
And just, in CG, you have the ability to show the character from all angles, like a complete 360. And that's just not what you do in SpongeBob, right?
Right.
So trying to put on limits in some areas while pushing it in other areas, it's really important to know, again, what the creators are looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you also talked about how the storyboard artists, like, they sometimes try to make SpongeBob look not like SpongeBob, right? So they try to do these really interesting poses that are really pushed.
Oh yeah. They'll do like super cartoony takes. Where in that case, we want to look at exactly like it was drawn, right,
on the board. Yeah.
Right, because then it's that's the fun of SpongeBob. I mean, I think one of my favorite things about SpongeBob is he kind of just, like, you can always tell what he's feeling just by looking at him, right? Like, he kind of you animate his feelings, which is what you do for everybody, but like for SpongeBob, like you kind of go overboard with it. Like, if he's scared, you can tell exactly because of the way he looks that he's extremely scared.
Well, and if we're comparing it to a character like Pocahontas, right, where Pocahontas had to be very precise, and she couldn't really diverge from a certain range of emotions, right? Where SpongeBob, you're doing just the opposite. Where if you want to show a sponge, you can squish it, you can squash it, you can rip it to pieces. You can do all kinds of stuff with a sponge that you couldn't do with a Pocahontas. So I think that's really inspiring, and I'm glad that SpongeBob does that. That's the fun of the show, I think, is looking to see what they're going to do next. What kind of crazy thing is SpongeBob going to turn into? Even if for a few seconds. What?
No, actually, after working with the crew for a while, I thought about like, what can I do? Like, going back to Prepper Farms and revamping it a little to make it a little more, like, to push it a little more. I guess I felt like I was a little reserved with Prepper Farms, with like the crazy wacky aspect of it. Because I can't remember who said it. Like, if it shouldn't be, it was Disney and the Illusions on Life. Like, when you're choosing what to animate, like, don't animate something that can be done in live action, right? Like, there should be a reason why you're doing it in animation. And I was like, oh yeah, well, it's a chicken that talks, but you have to push it more. What I like about SpongeBob is they push it a lot farther than a lot of other shows. A lot of other shows, I think, right now is not that it's bad, but it's just like the style. They have like a stylized character and kind of stick to that style. But with SpongeBob, you never know what he's doing. And a lot of the meetings, we just end up laughing and at how far everything's being pushed. And so it's really great to work on a show where we can push it pretty far, and it's just really fun to be an artist on a show like that. So
yeah, absolutely that. And those kinds of shows are rare, I think, especially as time goes on, where I think in the animation we get in these modes where we think, okay, that thing was successful, so we need to make everything look kind of like that thing. And it's nice when things like this, or even the Batman Spider-Man. I do recommend watching that, by the way, because of how inventive they are with how they do some things. And it's fun to see things like that emerge. That it's like, oh, here's something I haven't ever seen before. And yeah, absolutely. So your process is oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I went into the show not exactly sure what to expect. I've seen a lot of CG shows on TV, which I'm not trying to bash them or anything like that.
No, but they all have their own merit.
Yeah, I guess, a lot of it is very, I just thought, like, very, like, kind of talking faces, is, they hit a pose and then they do the mouth animation, and then they hit a pose and do the mouth animation. Where this show is not that. So it's been, it's really fun, and I think people will really like it when they see it. So.
I think so. I do think so. Well, you said that this one, compared to the feature films that they made, that it has much more of, like, the original creator's hands in it. And there's certain things they're trying to do with this that make it more authentically SpongeBob than maybe the feature films did.
I haven't seen all the films.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, there's like, I guess, just, and I'm not sure how much I know Steven Hillenburg was involved with, like, the first film for sure, and I think the second film, I'm not sure about that, but I think, like, just so much of it. See, I'm trying to think of here. I don't want to say anything I'm not supposed to be saying here.
Right, I know.
But
that's hard. We can go on to a different subject if you need
to. Yeah, let's. I don't want to say anything that is incorrect, because maybe I just don't have the full on it yet. So.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And we, on this show, we really want to talk more about directing animation, like the skill of it, the nitty-gritty of it, and actually this is going to be my next question, is how do we motivate people? How do we direct people in a way that is the most constructive? We've all worked under somebody. Hopefully we've all had this experience where we worked under somebody. It's just so hard to work for that person because of the way the direction comes, or it's really harsh, or, and artists do kind of have to develop this thick skin where we get to the point where we're not only, like, we're okay if we receive feedback, but we crave it. Like, that's kind of where we want to get as an artist. How do you get your artists to that point where they're craving your feedback, enjoying your feedback, where they feel like they're growing from your feedback?
Sorry, I don't mean to be well, at this point, I don't know if they're craving my feedback.
Well, that would be the ideal, right?
Yeah. So the artists, the animators, the studio that we're working with, they're super talented. The animators are really talented. They've really put a lot in. Like I said, again, when you see the show, it's going to be, I think it's going to blow people away about how good it looks. Animation wise and every wise, but with the animation especially, because we've been pushing them so much. What I think one of the payoffs is just seeing the so I guess there's a bunch of different answers to your question there. One of the payoffs is seeing the end result of the pushing, right? You see it polished, you see it in CG, you see it rendered and lit, and then with all the effects on it, and you're like, wow, that looks amazing. That's great. I'm so glad we pushed it that far, right? Because I think everybody, as an artist, as an animator, like, I know that a lot of people get a scene, like, they're dying to get a scene, and then they get a scene, and then for some reason they're dying to be done with the scene.
I know, yeah.
And in that situation, because I guess you see other scenes that you want to try or you want to jump onto, it's really good to just practice sticking to it, like hitting the vision, the director's vision. And so sometimes, when I was in college and I would look up a lot of the old traditional Disney animators. I wanted to be a traditional animator for Disney, working on the 2D feature films. And I read a lot about their creative processes and how I think it was Andreas Deja. He said, like, he'd listen to the audio for the clip that he was going to animate. He'd listen to it like several times, jot down a few sketches of what he wanted it to look like. Then he'd get up and walk around go get a cup of coffee or something like that.
Take a break, yeah.
Take a break, like not try to just jump right into it, kind of just like allow it to move. And so I think in animation, it's hard as a business, right? Because it's creative, but it's also a business. So
yes,
you want to stay creative, but you also have to hit the deadline.
You have to hit quotas, and yeah.
Yeah, so I think for myself, I think trying to get the animators to see the final vision of it, and like what you hear the rule: one shot, one thought. You don't want to cram. You don't want to cram all these subplots into one shot, because the shot is just part of a whole show. So trying to keep it simple, trying to simplify it. And sometimes you do get ideas that you'd like to add into a shot as an animator, and I'll try this, and it's hard to like, this might be a bit too much.
It's a great idea. It's creative, but it just doesn't fit. It's not the right fit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So in that situation, you can always keep that version for your reel if you want, but
I love that way of thinking. I've had to do that too. I've been like, oh, this is the real version, and then this is the show version. But honestly, like the show version, once you have distance from it, the show version actually is better in a lot of my experiences. And actually, on your point, I really liked your point about how we all get those shots that we were dying to get the shot, and then we're dying to get rid of it. And you reminded me of a lot of the animators I've worked with. We've seen a wide variety of animators going on, and I won't name any names because this might sound a little negative, but I think there's a lesson to be learned from it. And that is that I've noticed that the people who complain the most about that process, like they get those notes from the director, and they're like, oh man, I got another note from the director, and this and this and that, and I don't know about it. It seems like those people actually struggle with that problem more. Where I've noticed animators who take this approach of, okay, I've received a note, and I'm going to say, yes, this note might hurt a little bit, but it's going to make me better. It's going to make the show better. It's going to be, if you can take that and make it a positive each time, I think that, and I think as a director, as you were talking, I thought, well, we can do that as directors. We can say, this is going to maybe hurt a little bit, because I know you've done this shot like 5 times, At the same time, I know it's going to make you better. It's going to really help you as an artist to see how you could push things way further than you ever realized. And then you give the note or whatever. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think letting people know up front that this is a particularly challenging shot, and that the importance of this one shot in the middle of all these other shots, sometimes for certain shots before, as we ship out an animatic, I'll go through and put down, hey, for this shot, pay close attention to this pose or this expression or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the importance of something as simple as staying on model. Also, it at some point, like, it starts to detract from what you're watching. Like, it's no longer about like the story. It's about like, hey, how come it doesn't look like the character anymore? You want to, you don't want the character, you don't want the audience to like their thoughts to wander away from the story, right? You want them to stay focused on what the story you're telling. So anything that distracts that, you kind of want to try to eliminate. And yeah, I mean, if we're dealing with people, right? And so
human beings.
We want to crush them. We want them to make sure that they are hitting. If you're doing your personal project like Prepper Farms, do whatever the heck you want, right? Yeah. But if you're being hired to work on someone else's vision, you really got to understand the importance of hitting that vision for that person. And
not in a rigid way. I think that's another one of the tricks. As you were talking, I thought about, if you think just on model, and that's all you thought about, you could actually lose a lot in the performance too. You could have a very stiff and not dynamic performance. So there's another extreme that it could become a problem.
Yeah.
And how do you mitigate that? I'd be fascinated to hear your response.
I feel in CG, one of the, and I had this, I tried CG 3 times before I actually stuck with it.
Yeah, because you were more a 2D guy, right? You started in 2D.
Yeah.
Where I'm opposite. I started CG and then I've done a lot of 2D. So.
Yeah, I feel like one of the issues I had was, and that I see a lot in a lot of new animators, CG animators, is because you have a rig, because you have a model, it just, I feel like some animators, including myself when I started, are lazy in like, because there's already,
including me too. Yeah.
There's already a nose and eyes and shoulders and stuff. Like they want to get to the talking or the dancing or whatever it is, but they don't use like all the controls to hit like a beautiful line of action or anything like that, right? So if you were to take a CG pose and draw it, and present that as a drawing, if the drawing isn't good, right, or appealing, then that would say that pose is not good or appealing. And I think you know, like you were saying, there's sometimes getting like that stiff, you know, don't move anything because you don't want it, you know, can get to be like a big issue. So I mean, just paying attention to even like the line of action, the weight shifts and stuff like that, the makes a big difference. It's not that you have to rearrange the face or anything like that. It's just putting in that weight into the character. That will break it up.
And that's one reason that beginning animators don't want to move things, because we don't want things to kind of start to float, right? And look like there's no weight to them and stuff. At Rhythm and Hues, I remember there was one animator and he was like the best, and they had him come talk to us and tell us how to be better. And the one thing that he said that really stuck with me, I don't remember anything else he said, but this one thing was so cool. He's like, when I do a golden pose and then my secondary poses, so your main poses and the poses that go kind of in between those, for people who don't know who are listening, I know you know that, Pablo, but he touches everything. He at least touches the control and wiggles it. So the pinky control, he at least wiggles it at some point when he's doing those golden poses, so that he knows he's touched every control. So there's some kind of data on each of those. And then when you go into the polish phase, you can look and you can say, okay, that little pinky's floating. You can fix it, right? Fix it with giving it some better in between or whatever. But I think that's another way to make sure that it doesn't stiffen up.
Yeah. I like that, because I think people that you know, sometimes in a rush, and then I've worked as an animator on a show where you have to get a certain amount of footage done a week.
Oh yeah, it can be grueling.
Yeah, you just want to. I mean, sometimes it's like just push it through. But then at the end of the week, if all your stuff just looks pushed through,
yeah,
you're not gonna make it as an animator, right?
No.
Like, so you wanna just hit the basics. It's not there's no like the pose to pose and then spline doesn't work exactly. So getting in there and directing the, like you were saying, like then you hit the breakdowns, then you hit the in-betweens, and then the cushions. Like it's really important to, even in CG, especially with, I mean, if you're creating like a new idea and it's all CG, it was born in CG, you might be able to get away with a lot more than something like SpongeBob that was born in 2D.
In 2D, yeah.
And it has like a 2D feel and style and look. Then you got to really approach it from a 2D perspective.
Yeah. Well, as we've talked about how I worked on Keane Julian, and as you were talking, you reminded me that there was this tendency I noticed among animators, especially the longer you are on the show, you were much less likely to film reference. In fact, I don't really know of hardly any other animators who did reference. But I felt like video reference and shooting myself acting it out actually made me faster. And I was coming up with these ideas that I don't think I would have come up with otherwise. And that was just such an interesting thing. And it happened on Barbie too, where people just stopped filming reference. And yet, those who filmed reference were obviously faster. And the person who filmed the most reference was the fastest on the team. And I won't say who that was, but you can guess. So anyway, but that's what can you add to that? What do you think of those thoughts?
No,
I film reference for SpongeBob, like.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, on my computer, I have like this big folder where I have myself acting stuff out for the animators. I mean, with SpongeBob, we want to, like, the boards, the storyboards are like the storyboard artists do all the thought, the thinking and stuff like that. I know, like in other shows that I've worked on, I'm not trying to bash storyboard artists, but like we'll see the storyboards, and then we kind of, as animators, we try to add a little bit of ourselves in there.
Yeah.
And so in that case, like we look at the storyboards for the idea of the shot, and then we would go with film reference and stuff like that, and try to bring out something from that character. For SpongeBob, it's different. Like the storyboard artists do all the heavy lifting. Like they do, like they put in, like, they build the composition, and the character goes here, and it's like a beautiful, like every shot is like a piece of art, and like a lot goes into the storyboards. And so we're asked as animators to really stick to those boards. But even then, like some of the stuff that we feel maybe here in America, because we use overseas studios that don't, like in America, we'll like do something that we get as Americans, but overseas it's not understood.
Yeah, so, I remember you guys talking about that in the interview. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, so in those situations, I will try to record myself.
Like, this is how we would do it here in America or whatever.
Yeah. This is the action. This is what we do, and this is how you do it. This is like the timing or the spacing of it, we do use video reference, but it's not to try to like come up with something new. It's to try to nail what's already there in the boards,
or flesh it out a bit.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how it was on King Julian. It was like, how do I get from these poses that the storyboard artist drew, and how do I take that? And I don't think that's speaking bad about storyboard artists at all. I think storyboard artists are amazing. It's not easy work for you to come up with this entire the performance, and what's the background, what's the camera angle, and what does it all mean, and how does it all come together? Yeah. So
sometimes the board artists will, because they don't deal with time as specifically as animators do. Like they'll take a drawing, copy it, and flip it, and put a red arrow there saying like, oh, he's turning and walking, but they don't take into account the amount of time that will take to actually turn and walk off screen. So in those situations, we have to like massage it a little bit to make sure, what's more important, the character to get off screen or the turn or something like that. It's dumb stuff like that, or if it's not always drawn to scale, but the characters in a CG world are definitely have a dimension and take up a certain amount of space. We have to find a way to cheat it, or maybe redirect it a little bit to make it work.
That's awesome. You talked about a story artist maybe not taking the amount of time or thinking about that amount of time. Have you ever seen Miyazaki's storyboard books? Hayao Miyazaki's storyboard books?
Yeah.
They're amazing. And when you watch him, I've seen video footage of him drawing the drawings, and he'll actually sit there with a stopwatch and he'll imagine the animation, and then he'll write down how many seconds each bit in the margin each bit is going to take. It's just, He's mind-blowing. I showed you the animatic for the musical pitch that I've been pitching, and my warm-ups for drawing those boards were drawing from Miyazaki storyboards. So that's how I'd warm up. And I don't know if that was a mistake or a good thing, but it was so humbling to just draw his drawing and be like, how did he think about this? How did he come up with this exact pose and how it's composed and how the background's interacting? And it's so incredibly brilliant, you know? And like his storyboards are the film.
Yeah.
When you talk about being true to the boards, you look at his storyboards and that's what you get in the film. And it's just remarkable.
Very detailed and very, I mean, even in his movies, like the background is animated and everything. Like you're just always blown away by the level of detail he has.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you're a storyboard artist listening to this, maybe use a stopwatch. Maybe that's the way to envision how long a piece of action is going to take so that we animators can fully embrace your vision and bring it to life. So, yeah. And we love you, storyboard artists. You're amazing. I know that we've done the work that we've tried to do the work that you do, and you have developed. I'm sure it just takes years to be able to get to the level that the story artists are at your studio. So, yeah. They're wonderful, and I've learned so much from them. I bet.
Those, those things I mentioned, those are like very rare, like just here and there.
Oh yeah. And that's going to happen in anybody's process. Like no matter what your job is, you're going to have these little things that happen, and you just have to be aware that those need to be fixed. Yeah.
Yeah, but they I have, like, I would say learned a ton from just seeing their drawings, just looking at their drawings. I'm like, holy cow, these guys are amazing. So
I know. I took the storyboard secrets course that Sherm Cohen, who was, I don't know if he's still a SpongeBob artist. Yeah. His course was amazing, and just seeing his drawings, they were just so remarkable. He's so talented.
No, he's him and Dave Cunningham. They're the two storyboard directors on the first part of the first season, and just as we present stuff, in a group, and we watch it all, and just hearing their comments and seeing what their vision of it was and stuff like that. It's like that's where I learned how to do all the stuff on Kamp Koral that I learned how to do, like, was just listening to them.
How to draw the characters, how to think about the process and all of that. Yeah. Wow.
They've got like lists of how to do what's allowed and what's not allowed. What is SpongeBob? What is Squidward? What is, and what they're not. So, it's really cool to see the, when I was in high school, I had one teacher, this English teacher, who she'd always say, like, in order for anything to be like, whenever she wanted to say anything was like so easy, it was stupid easy, she'd always say, like, this is Mickey Mouse stuff, people. This is Mickey Mouse.
My dad would say that as an electrician. He's an electrician. I was like, hey, Dad, how about you do this in your electrical project I was helping with? And he's like, Scott, it can't be Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, it's like saying it like, that means like it's so easy, like it's this. But the more the more you get involved with animation, I think people go into it. A lot of people that are, they're fans of animation. They go into it thinking like, hey, I want to work in this field, but then they hit a point where they realize there's so much work. There's so much to making Mickey Mouse look like Mickey Mouse or SpongeBob look like SpongeBob. A lot of people just can't do it, and so it's such a fun but challenging artistic process to.
It's wonderful. We obviously love it. We've stuck with it for years, over 10. So so as we wrap up here, I often ask the Get Wiser moment question, which is that if my goal if I were directing a series or a feature film, if my goal were to get the highest quality, the highest clarity of truth into a story, what approach would you recommend? And I can repeat that if you need me to.
No. I think one of the things that I got, one of my favorite artists, and he's everybody's one of favorite artists is Glenn Keane. I remember him saying that he was happy that he married that his wife was not in the animation industry because like she brought she brought in real life into his world, because maybe without her he'd be kind of stuck in the animation world where everything is just animation, and that like taking a break from that world, like if all you do is animation, then all you're going to get is like repeated stuff of what's already been animated. So
a copy of a copy.
Going out into the real world. And again, that's why we study animals and we study anatomy on humans and do life drawings and stuff like that. Like copying a drawing or copying a copy, like you were saying, that's not going to get you any closer to connecting with a person. That'll get you closer to being a fan of something, but I remember Glenn saying, like, if you take a break from the animation world, go out and like experience the world and bring that world into the animation world, that's what will connection with people. And
wow,
one of the things in pitching Prepper Farms, they told me was that a lot of people, when they pitch, don't have a sense of the relationships between the characters aren't real. And they said that my characters seemed very real, and I said, well, that's because it's my family, like it's my children. And they said, wonderful. Like you really nailed the relationships. And so I think bringing in truth will mean you just have to go outside and find it and then
live.
Bring that. And then once you've lived that, then you tell your story. You tell or someone else's truth story that will actually bring that connection in to the audience.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke, right, or to blow sunshine. That is a very fantastic answer. I don't think I've ever had anyone answer in that way. Usually they'll talk about process, like focus on character or focus on, and I always pay very, very close to this, because this is the get wiser moment. Like this is where I'm trying to build my brand, is a deep sense of truth. And and I like that your starting point was your wife. It was Glenn Keane's wife, but I imagine that your wife is a big inspiration to you. And
that's actually what it, like,
and to me too. Not your wife, but my wife. I don't know your wife.
Not that I was like when I read all the stuff, I wasn't. It's not like I was like, all right, I'm only going to date people that are not in the animation industry. But it did kind of influence, like, like not that having a wife in the animation industry will limit your vision, but again, just living that life will help.
Yeah, if you have a spouse in the animation industry, you're going to be okay. Just you can still go experience life together. It's okay. And I actually did. I was in theater when I was in the dating phase, and I did say I wouldn't marry anybody in theater. And one of my big reasons for that was balance.
Okay.
I wanted a level. I wanted somebody who was very different from me, and who I could learn from and grow with and admire, and all that kind of thing. And I can still admire some theater people, but I think I made a good choice. But yeah, well, that was wonderful, Pablo. Where can people follow you? Where can they learn more about Prepper Farms?
Well, I haven't really done anything with it for a while, but there is a Prepper Farms Facebook page, which I will still be, eventually, hopefully when things
you'll get back to it,
like balance it out a little bit better. I'll still be doing it. There's a Prepper Farms Facebook page. I do have an Instagram. I'm just not amazing at social media.
Me either.
I don't really. I try to be on it, but I'd make a goal to be on it for a certain amount of time. But then I don't know what it is. I just don't. It's not my thing. But I do have an Instagram, whatever you call it, page or thing.
And the link to that is down in the show notes. So.
Oh, okay.
If you want to follow Pablo, look in the show notes of this, or we also feature this on Anchor.fm. We'll distribute it to Apple Podcasts and a bunch of other podcasting websites. So in those notes, it will be in there as well.
Oh, great.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So please look up Pablo, see his work, see how amazing he is. He's been an inspiration to me since I started, really, and hopefully the feeling's mutual. And and until next time, I hope we all get a little wiser.
Okay.
You have been watching the Directing Animation Livecast with Scott Weiser. Audio version edited by Kiera Horowitz. Copyright Scott Weiser LLC 2020.